Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to Thrive Thursday, where I introduce you to some of my favorite people and my featured guests who share their expertise and their life experiences. And together we just share what's real, relatable, and relevant to you as entrepreneurs. So I'm Naja Hayward. I'm a serial entrepreneur, business strategist, and mentor. And I'm the founder and host of Thrive Entrepreneurs. And we're a community, a Facebook community of people looking to do great things in the world. So I am so excited to have my special guest here today, Adele Ravella. And I have to kind of tell you how I learned about you. Adele, I don't even know if you know this.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, so I use something called ClickFunnels. And with ClickFunnels, they have a really great blog and are always sending out really great information. And they sent out an email one day that said, this is what it said. I'm going to tell you right now. It said, your sales funnel will fail if you don't do this. And I'm like, okay, what's it going to, what am I going to be failing at if I don't do what? So it said, if you don't know who your customer avatar is, your business will fail. It's really a critical component. And so, but it used a word called buyer persona, which was the first time I had heard that. I've heard of customer avatar. And as I was reading this article, I really noticed that the way this woman, who was you, created buyer persona was so different than any other way I had ever noticed it. And I thought, oh my God, okay, I want to learn from her. So that's how. So then I contacted you and I reached out to you immediately, and that's what we're going to be talking today. And I want to start off first and foremost by I like to get a little bit personal with people. So I was a little bit nosy and I dug deep into your Facebook, and I noticed you're a fisherwoman.
Oh dear.
And you caught a really big fish recently. Tell us about that. And is that your passion in life? Like, is that what fuels your personal life? It's not.
No, my husband is a fisherman, and we were out one day fishing, and I happened to catch the biggest, ugliest fish on the planet. And so he took a picture of me with it, and I shared it on Facebook. So
that was great. That was a lot of fun. I loved seeing that. Well, tell us, what's one thing outside of the work that you do that drives you, that fuels the work that you do in your personal life?
I'm a gardener.
You are?
Yeah, I'm really passionate about gardening. We live in the Pacific Northwest. We moved here 15 years ago from Arizona.
Oh, and that's a big change.
Yeah. Part of the reason I wanted to move here was to get to some place where I could garden with plants that I love. So yeah, that's my real passion. Fishing, I love being on the boat, but my husband would tell you that I'm a reluctant fisherman. So
you are. Well, I'll tell you this, you're an exceptional one, catching that big, ugly fish. Hi, subscribe, welcome. We'd love to have you. We're glad you're here. Just made it snow. Oh, it's snowing. Yay. Look at your screen. So for everyone out there watching, if you have any questions, just type in /Q, and that will give us your questions over to the left. Please ask any questions that you want. Today is about you and your business and how to help you thrive. And it's by really identifying your buyer persona. So with that said, Adele, can you tell us, what is a buyer persona?
Yeah, so most people would tell you that a buyer persona is an example buyer. Maybe they might even say this is an ideal buyer, and it's like a composite picture of all your buyers out there that tells you who your buyer is. In my view, that's a limited understanding of your buyer persona, and so my work focuses on understanding our buyer when they're making a buying decision, and when they're making the exact buying decision that we want them to make, which is to buy something from us, right? So, or at least they're making the decision to solve the problem that we solve. And so it's not just a picture of who our buyer is, and it really goes deeper to get insight into how, when, and why people make that particular buying decision, so that we can insert ourselves in that process and be at the right place at the right time with the right message to persuade them to choose us.
Okay, so let me ask you, is this something, when you think about buyer persona or you think about a client avatar, it's quite a, like, what is the process to identifying, if you're new in business, what's the process to actually identifying that person if you don't quite know a lot about your business in the first place? So if you're just getting started, how do you start to identify who your buyer persona is?
Well, most people that start a business, I mean, this is my third company, so I appreciate you saying you're a serial entrepreneur, Naja. I get that. We start our business because we understand that there's some problem out there that we think we can address. And so don't start with your business or your product, but rather start with the problem you're solving and think about who would spend money to solve that problem. Who are those people? And you're going to probably come up with a number of different answers to that question. Then the process you're going to go through is to get smarter about who that person is, and especially to get smarter about how to influence them.
Now, does everyone need to do this? Is this for service-based business, product-based businesses, people who are coaches? Like, who needs to do this?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and everybody needs to understand their customer. I mean, you can go back 40, 50 years. I'll tell my age here in a minute if I'm not careful. In literature, and see that every business book says know your customer. But the concept of building a persona for your customer is best if you have the resources to go really research that persona. And so if you're really starting out, I wrote an article for Entrepreneur Magazine earlier this year, and I said, not everybody has to go build a persona, because if you already think you know your buyer and you're all by yourself and there's nobody else in your company that you need to really get on the same page with you about who your buyer is, then this is probably it's probably just a waste of time, or your time could be spent elsewhere. But if you're not sure who your buyer is and you have the resources to really go, or the willingness to spend the time, because you don't have to spend money to do this, you can just learn how to do it yourself, to really delve into the mindset of your buyer, then absolutely it's going to be like a safety net for you, that you didn't accidentally go make up an idea that nobody really is willing to spend money to solve. So let's talk about that from two different perspectives, right? So a corporation could hire someone like you and have you go through probably a costly and great experience to really identify who their buyer is. But for someone, let's say for the small business or for the solo entrepreneur, what are some cost-effective, low-cost to no-cost ways that we can start to identify that person in a more cost-efficient way? Yeah, so that's why I wrote the book, and that's why Wiley published my book earlier this year. It's a new year. What am I saying? In March. Adele's book is called Buyer Persona: How to Gain Insight into Your Customers' Expectations, Align Your Marketing Strategies, and Win More Business. So everyone go out. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it's pretty much anywhere that you can buy a book. Go out and buy it, because the information is so critical. But okay, so that's why they published your book. And that's why I wanted to write the book, because I knew that not everybody could afford our services. And and I wanted people to be able to buy a book for, you can buy it on Kindle for $13. Okay. And to know everything I know about how to do this. Wow. And so unlike a lot of books, I actually wrote down every step of how to find people and interview them and conduct the interview, and then use that interview to build the buyer persona. But the short answer to your question, because it sounds like I'm trying to sell books, and really, honestly, I make like 80 cents a book, so this is not no, but I think that people should buy their book because it gives them value. So I want to sell your book, and not to give you the 80 cents, but so that people have the information. Yeah, exactly. Right. So the fact is that the idea is to find people who have recently spent money to solve the problem that you want to solve. I'm opening a flower shop. I'm going to go find people in the community who have spent money to celebrate And so we could go as broad as, hey, I want to spend money to celebrate, or I want to go spend money to decorate my home. Or it could be as specific as, I want to go spend money to buy flowers to decorate my home. And, you know, some of that depends on how you really think you're competing. But if you think you're competing around the broad problem, then go talk to people at the broad level. Okay. And ask them, you know, talk to me, and you're saying to the person, so you recently bought flowers to celebrate your friend's birthday. Tell me what happened. When you first decided to buy flowers for your friend's birthday, what did you do first? And then you walk them through how they found the right florist to buy, how they decided which flowers, what their thoughts were about what kinds of flowers they wanted, and how they eventually arrived at the conclusion to buy those flowers somewhere other than from your business, right? And that's what we're trying to find out. Is how do people think about that?
And is that just as important, finding out why someone buys something from another business? It's so interesting. I just started watching Mad Men. And we have a question from Scopescribe. Scopescribe, I'm going to get to your question in just a second. But I just started watching Mad Men, and the very first episode has Don Draper sitting at a restaurant table, and the waiter walks up, and I think he was smoking a cigarette, right? And it wasn't a Lucky Strike, which was the brand that Don Draper represented. And he wanted to know what would make you leave. What would make you buy a different type of cigarette? And the man was like, no. And he says, but what would make you do it? Yeah. And I loved that. And I actually posted it on Facebook because that's what we all need to be doing. Like, so what made you buy that? And for him, it was a habit. He had been doing it all of his life. There was no reason they weren't the best. They weren't, I don't even know if he necessarily thought that they were the tastiest, but it was a habit for him. But Don Draper, as a marketer, really wanted to get into his mindset. And so you're saying by asking these questions, we start to get into the mindset of why they make the choice, whether it's a choice to come with us or to not come with us, which is just as important, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the mistakes a lot of people make when they're building buyer personas is they interview their best customers. And that's a big mistake because, it's okay to interview those people. I'm not saying we shouldn't talk to our customers. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'm just saying that what we're trying to do is get smarter by getting into somebody's mind about how they make that choice. We're trying to do what Don Draper was trying to do. I've seen the episode. We're trying to figure out how these people think about, solving this category of problem, and then how they go out and make a decision about what to use. And trust me, one of the biggest things we're competing against is the status quo. People are kind of lazy. I've been smoking Lucky Strike. I don't smoke, but I've been smoking Lucky Strike my whole life. And, it just never occurred to me to go out and try to change. And then we talk to them about that. And, but ideally, and this is one of the things you'll see in the book, we try to find people who have changed. And the more you can talk to people who have actually weighed a couple of options and thought about it for a while, the more value you're going to get out of this process of building a buyer persona. And that's important.
It sounds important, and this is really good. Okay, so Scopescribe says, where do you begin to build a buyer persona vocationally? What do you mean by vocationally?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Where do you begin to build a buyer persona vocationally? Like what kind of work they do, step by step. Oh, okay. So what are the step by steps to building your buyer persona? Okay, so let's walk it through the process, and let's take it from the perspective of not corporate, but a solopreneur, someone who with limited investment in the process, but who may have time. So what's the very first step that they're going to need to do or to identify in this buyer persona process?
Okay, so the first thing is to think about, like I just mentioned, we'll just stay with the florist for now, unless you want to tell me a better idea.
I like the florist.
Okay. And so, I don't know, why did I pick florist? Because I guess I was thinking about gardening.
Okay, I like flowers.
So, we want to open a new flower shop in town. And so we're going to go find people to interview who have bought flowers recently. I mean, we could do something as simple as stand outside the local flower shops.
Okay, so that's one way to find them, is to stand outside of our competition shop. What are some other ways to start to find those people?
Well, through the internet. And
Okay.
so, you know, through tweets, through whatever social media you're using, to say, you know, I'm looking to interview people about how they make decisions to buy flowers or to buy, you know, I don't care, it's exercise equipment, or to choose what gym to go to, or, you know,
or how to find a business coach, or how to find someone to help you with your buyer persona strategy.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. That one might be a little hard to find on the street, but
I think so.
But yeah, if you've got a kind of a retail business, you want to go to where your buyers are, and then you want to conduct a kind of a specialized interview with them. Okay. And ideally, you're going to record this interview. So, you know, I'm talking about doing this in person. If so, you know, you might take your iPhone or something, or your Android. Don't let me get too specific here.
Thank you, Adele. I'm an Android girl.
Here you go. I don't care about brands here. And, you know, and you might ask permission to interview them. Just, you know, I'd love to hear exactly what you have to say. I don't want to miss a word. Would it be okay if I just recorded this conversation? And then you just ask them to tell you their story. And people love to tell their stories. Yeah. You know, people hate surveys. Oh my gosh, if one more person calls me and says, you know, I want to ask you a script and I want to run through these questions. No, I don't want to do that.
That's good.
But I would love to tell you my story. One of the ones I do all the time when I'm in front of a large crowd is I'll say, who in here has recently decided to go on a really cool vacation? And I'm not talking about getting in the car. I'm talking about doing someplace really cool. Okay. And then I just say, you know, everybody in the room's really excited about, they planned this vacation. And I'll say, well, stand up and just take me back to the day when you first decided that you wanted to go on a great vacation, and tell me what happened. And you walk them through every step of their story. And, you know, it takes quite a bit of time to explain to you exactly how to do that interview. I could go deep on that, but to get to Scope's question, once we've done that interview, we have it transcribed, and we're going to do a bunch of these. We're not going to do it with just one person. We're trying to build a persona.
Okay.
So we want to look at what we're hearing from a number of people, and we're going to transcribe everything we hear. And then we use what we call the 5 rings of buying insight to look for patterns in how people think about certain aspects of the buying decision. And then we actually build the persona by taking some of those verbatim quotes, putting like headlines on each quote, so that we can say, you know, what triggers the shopper's need for a new florist is, gosh, the last florist sold me some flowers that died in 2 days. I just moved here and I don't have a florist, and I'm looking for one for the first time.
So you want their words. You want to use their language, because if they're using it, and especially if there's some sort of consistency, there's other people that can receive that information and say, that's me, right? So that becomes an identification. And so that, okay, I like that. I love the fact that you said, I actually have my clients do surveys. I don't say do surveys, but I say survey your client base, survey the people around you, survey your prospects. And I don't always mean survey like ask them, you know, these checkbox questions, but I've never clarified to really get to their story. And now you've actually taught me something to transform the way I do that process with my clients, because you're right. People don't want, I mean, they barely want to be paid to do a survey, let alone, you know, to go through this kind of sterile process. But everyone wants to share their story. So I love that. That was really powerful.
And there's an even more important reason not to do surveys, Naja, and that's because when you do a survey, you only get answers to the questions that you thought were important.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And, you know, I am so opposed to making stuff up. I dedicated my book. This book is dedicated to every marketer who questions the wisdom of making stuff up. And when we build a survey, we're making stuff up. we're deciding that maybe this and maybe that and choose these options. And, you know, I think that's just a flawed idea. If I want to understand my audience, my buyers, I just want to hear their stories.
So let me ask you, Adele, if we're going, 100% of my clients are actually outside of California, and I've never met half of them. I've never really met most of them. So how would I, if that's the core of my business, it's really kind of more online, how can I ask them to tell my story? Aside from calling and say, okay, I'd like to schedule a call with you, is there a way to have them write their story? Like, how would you extract their story? Is it something they have to tell you? Okay.
Yes, I want you to think like a journalist here, Naja. And if somebody called you up and said, write your story, you could do that, but it would be surface level. Okay. So there's a skill involved in this interview that you're going to conduct. Okay. And the rule is the first answer to any question is an answer you already knew. Okay. So every time you hear an answer, you've got to, in the moment, ask a follow-up question. And if you watch a journalist, I mean, you said you watched Mad Men, you can watch great interviewers on TV. They're ad-libbing some of those questions. We want to ad-lib all of them. And based on what the person said, and it's usually that follow-up question that really gets to something interesting. And so, yeah, no, you'd want to do this by phone. If your type of customer isn't, and that's how we do the interviews anyway. We do them all by phone.
Okay, I like that. I want to rewind a little bit because you have there's such a structure to this process that you've created, and you created the buyer persona process yourself, right?
This particular buyer persona process I created, yes.
Tell me, how did you come to this? How did you, like, what's your background that got you to developing this process?
Well, now you're going to make me sound really old, Naja, and you look so young and fresh. But so I've spent over 30 years in technology industry sales and marketing, and I for the last, starting in about 2001, I was doing a training workshop on marketing for technology industry marketers, and I was telling them, you got to know your buyer persona and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, that's a great idea, but how do I do that? So when I sold that business and started this one 6 years ago, I realized I needed to make this structured. I needed to make it, if I was going to teach people to do something that's really quite different. I mean, people can build surveys, people can even do focus groups, but this is something very unique. And so I thought about how I did this over my career, but I especially thought about, and this might surprise you, my time as a salesperson. So I was a salesperson for only a year of my whole career, but I ran sales for 4 years. And those 5 insights that I talk about are the 5 things that when I was in sales, if I could know those 5 things about one customer at a time, I could win their business every time. Because if I could just know those 5 things, and I could talk to you about the 5 insights, then I could understand their mindset so well that I could present my product as a perfect fit for them. So if we're going to build personas, I said, well, this is a perfect framework. Because essentially what we're doing as marketers, and increasingly so now that people buy online and, you know, they buy without much sales intervention, we're really doing at the level of the market what salespeople used to do one customer at a time. We're trying to understand how a market full of buyers thinks so we can create a perfect fit between, in their minds, between what we do and the problem that they think they have.
Okay, so, you know, the interesting part of this is I would say intellectually, I know who my customer base is. I have gone through some processes where I've identified and I've written it down. What impact is happening on people's business when they don't really get clear on their buyer persona, and when they don't do this activity to really hone in on the psychology and who their ultimate buyer is? Like, what are they missing out on?
Yeah. Well, they're missing out on being able to dominate in the market or enter a market that is dominated by someone else. You know, I mean, you can always find, at least, you know, most of us, if we're going to go out and we're going to start a new business, there's at least some segment of the market that we know about, that we know the right people and we can sell it to them. But if we have to go out and market to a lot of people, and we have to get a lot of people interested in what we have to say, we run the real risk of just expecting that the few people we know that are interested in this product think like the market as a whole. And so if, you know, in a lot of services businesses, and especially small services companies, maybe this isn't as important because you're kind of just cherry picking one customer at a time and so forth. But if you're really trying to grow a business and to start to really dominate a market, then you need to know how a market full of buyers thinks. If you're willing to do it one customer at a time, you probably don't need to do this. That's selling. Marketing is talking to a market full of buyers. Sales is talking to one customer at a time.
Well, and one of the things that I do with my clients is I say, okay, do you want to have a job, and which means that you're kind of, you know, you have your clients and you make enough money. Or do you want to have a business, which means it can live beyond you? And so this is something that every business be able to do, right? Like every business needs to, because once you're gone and you're out of the picture, whether you're the face and the brand of the company or not, we have to be doing this, right?
Well, it depends. I mean, there are perfectly legitimate lifestyle businesses out there that people just want to be their own boss and, you know, have a small group of customers. And that's a perfectly legitimate choice. And in that case, that's what I'm saying. You probably don't need to worry about this too much. You know, my hairdresser, you know, I live in a small community I live on an island in the Puget Sound.
Are you in Brayburn?
No, I live on San Juan Island, right in Friday Harbor.
Oh, I think I have a dear friend that lives over there, actually. I want to talk to you offline about that. See if you know them.
And, you know, the people that have services here on this island, they don't need to build buyer personas. There's only 6,000 people that live on the whole island.
Okay.
You're only 1 degree of separation from every other person on the island. This isn't required. But if you're going to go try to own the market for hoverboards or, you know, for your pumpkin pie recipe, and you really want to dominate that market, I mean, I love Shark Tank. Shark Tank is far and away my favorite show of the whole world.
You and I both.
I was so happy it was back on this week live. I just love it. And if you really watch those sharks, you know, what they're trying to figure out is there a market full of buyers for this?
And that's the key word, right? Is there a market, which is different? Oh, excuse me one moment. Deanna, you said you can't hear anything, and I wanted to open up a seat for someone to jump in. Deanna, when you're ready, feel free to jump back in, and just refresh, like Coach Nori Love said. Thanks, Coach Nori. Thank you. So, okay, so let's say that everyone on this call wants to be more than just a solopreneur, and they want to build a business that features a market, right? Are you in, Deanna? Did you get that? Can you hear us now? Okay.
Well, you're good. You can watch that chat and also talk to me at the same time. That's multitasking.
Well,
I'm impressed.
Even in the infrastructure that I normally use, it's the same kind of, you know, people can put their comments in, so it's not the easiest thing, I'll tell you, but it does take a little bit of practice. Jump on in, Deanna, if you're ready. We'd love for you to ask any questions that you have of Adele, and there's an open seat for you ready when you are. Okay, so as a coach, what I would like to know, I would like to say that I'm trying to capture a market. I want to move away from doing one-on-one coaching and really creating products and programs that support entrepreneurs as a whole, right? And I'm pretty perfect. One of the things that I'm clear on is none of us serves everyone. So let's talk about that, because people go in and they're like, so who's your business for? Oh, everyone. And it's like, okay. So
right.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, so, and this does happen. You know, people come to me. I mean, I had a call with a client today that's a relatively big company, and they said, you know, we're really not sure who our buyer is, so who do we go talk to? And, you know, the best answer is go try to talk to 2 or 3 of each type of who you think they might be. You know, make some wild guess, And if you've got a business already, you've got some idea that the easiest access to sell your new products is to sell them to people who are like your current customers. So start to kind of profile those people and then find other people like that. But remember that when you interview them, you're interviewing them about how they think about solving the problem that you want to solve for them. And so that's what will change, right? If you start to productize your business, right now, you know, maybe you're talking to them one-on-one on the phone, and now you want to start to have products, then you've got to talk to them about the problem that you're going to solve with those products. And that's where, and how they're addressing that today. And I like to find people who have spent money to solve that problem. And so, you know, I would say, hey, listen, if I were launching the Apple Watch, which I did not, I didn't work with Apple, it's not mine, you know, I would have gone out and interviewed people who had, within the last year, bought Fitbits and iPhones. And I would have talked to them about what they were thinking about, what triggered that, what problem they were trying to solve most. And I would have started to try to hone in on where my watch fit into that picture. And then I would have introduced at the end of the interview, well, one of the things that we've been thinking about is that it would be really great if you had this kind of iPhone Fitbit combination that you could wear on your wrist that would kind of tap you and when you had a text message. And what are your thoughts about that? And by now you've already heard their story for 10 or 15 or 30 minutes, and you've kind of got this rapport, and they'll react to you, and they'll say, wow, that would be the greatest thing in all time, or, oh no, you know, I don't want anything tapping my wrist. I don't want to wear a watch. Watches are passé, you know, but you're going to get a reaction.
Well, you know, I have a question. To that vein, what happens when you see these companies that clearly have invested a lot of money to invest in a launch of a new product, right? You can tell that they've really identified who this product is for and who their buyer persona is. Now, when that product fails, what do you think has happened within that? Is it a function of the buyer persona process? Did it work, or could it be something else? Like, are there times when you could be wrong about your buyer persona?
Yeah, I'm not sure I know that example per se, Naja, but I'd say they know who their buyer is, but did they test the idea? Did they do what I just talked about with the Apple Watch? Okay. And find out in advance how people who were spending money to solve you know, with the best available technology at that time, a Fitbit and an iPhone, to get messages, you know, and to track
brilliant, by the way, brilliant.
yeah, right. And then test how people reacted to the newness of the idea. And so I don't know of companies that have done that and failed.
Okay. You know, one of the things that I've done is I've created an outline for a product. So I didn't actually create the product, and I'm talking about like a course, an online course. But I created the outline, and I would talk to people about what I created, thinking that, okay, I had some people that may have been asking me for this particular solution to whatever their business problem was. But rather than creating the whole product and then trying to sell it based on this few people that have said yes to me, I sold them on a concept that had, and almost, so then I would do a pre-launch. So let's see now. I've had a few people say yes to this solution. Now, let's see if people will actually spend money to do it before creating it and taking an investment. And do you think that that's a good way to really test not only a product, but also your buyer personas or your buyers' reaction to that program?
Yeah, that was the third part of my article, my point in Entrepreneur Magazine about whether or not you have to build a buyer persona. Is I said, if you can incrementally invest in your product and test it and then see if it works, that's the best way of all. It's, you know, so, you know, a lot of the companies we work with, they're going to spend lots of money building that product. They're going to spend lots of money marketing it. And if they're wrong, it's very costly. And it's even costly to their reputation. So, but then there's, gosh, let's see if I can come up with it. There's the company that makes the kitchen utensils. is that one?
Oh, XOXO.
OXO.
Oh, is that how you say OXO? I always called it XOXO.
But when they have a new product idea, they just build a prototype of it. They put it in a few stores. If it sells, they make them in mass. And if it doesn't sell, they throw it away and try something else. That's way better than going and doing market research or building buyer personas. So if you've got a product you can do that with, Naja, it's a better approach. Now, and so that's what I said, an entrepreneur, how much are you going to invest in this before you find out if you're right or wrong? Do you have the skill and or the money to go do research and really understand your buyer? And is there anybody else on your team that needs to be on the same page with you about your buyers? So if you're, bringing a lot of people into the company, if you're starting to work with, third parties to help you with this launch, that's where the buyer persona really helps, because you might have a picture in your mind of who your buyer is, but somebody else has a different picture. And so your buyer persona gets you on the same page.
What I love about this and what you've created, Adele, is you have not made it wrong for not having a buyer persona. You're giving people lots of options on how to do it. And I've read so many articles on people making it doomsday. If you start your business and you don't know who your customer avatar is, you'll fail, and it's like a part of the process is actually possibly even failing in trying that out, right? And trying to discover who that is. And so, one of the things that I like to tell my clients is sometimes you find out who your client is by really getting clear on who your client is not. And you find out who they
Absolutely.
are, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So sometimes it's just jump in, like go for it. Just get in
there.
Just do it. Yes,
Nike.
Just do it. Yeah, just do it. Nike. Okay, Diana Delgado H says, where can we find a link to that article? Would you mind give a link to the article? Because we can post it right in here. Or if you tell me where to find it. Is it on your website?
No, but I have a link to it here I can pull up real quick.
Okay.
And so I'll find it because I have links. So it won't take me long to find that. It's Entrepreneur Magazine, but yeah.
Oh, you know what? I did read that article when I was doing research on you. That was a great article. So we started off by saying you want to not survey, but you want to start getting out there and talking to people about why so we use the example of the garden shop or of a flower shop. And we want to start asking questions during your last party or during your last event. Why did you go to X garden shop, right? So that's kind of step one. So what would the next step be? Because the thing that I love that you created in that ClickFunnels is there's actually there's a whole visual that you created. Your buyer persona profile, priority initiative, success factors. You have a picture. You have like a physical picture of who this buyer ultimately is. Do you create a name for them and like what their role, their education? You pretty much break them down into an actual person, right?
You want to make them into an actual person. Yeah. And some people get really hung up on that. Like, is this a man or a woman? And, what name do I give them? And what photo do I choose? Yeah. So don't get hung up on that.
Okay.
But there is some value, and I just put that link in the chat. So
Thank you.
There is some value in really starting to think about, people, your customer as a human being. And, I think in people that do consumer marketing find that easier to do. And people who are selling to somebody like themselves, I've worked in B2B marketing my whole career. And honestly, the marketers have a really hard time picturing the CFO of Bank of America as a human being.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why we do it. So, but still, it's, as you're growing your company culturally, being able to talk about, this person like they're a real person, call them Tom, call them Sam, call them Harry, I don't care. And, and say, well, what would Harry think? Because one of the challenges, actually, my son called me today, and he's thinking about leaving his corporate job he's been in for 15 years. Oops. And I'm going to work for a startup. And he's really scared about it. And I said to him, you know, part of the fun of being in a startup or in a small business is it's like drugs almost. I mean, you get so caught up in the vision that you have for the business. And that's both the upside and the downside. So the buyer persona kind of keeps you sane so that you don't go off into thinking like the whole world wants this, and or the Shark Tank version that, you know, like the sharks will jump all over you if you say, well, the market's like, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and if we just got 2% of it, I mean, that's such a stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
Don't go to Shark Tank with that story.
No.
But when we go in there and we say, but Harry is part of this market, or Sam's part of this market, and we know that he wants to buy this because, and this is what's important to him about that buying decision, this is where he looks for solutions like this. This is where we need to be on the internet. This is the kind of web experience he needs to have in order to want to buy from us. Then this really starts to make Harry like real to you. And then he's a part of this meeting you're having with your content marketing person or the copywriter that's helping you write copy for your website or whatever.
Well, and I think that's important too, is that it sounds to me like your whole team, the whole company needs to be in on, if you've identified your buyer persona, this is not something that, you know, your marketing team knows who that buyer persona is. It's like, no, the company needs to speak about this person, and everyone needs to be on board, because whatever department you're in, you're creating and working based on that as an end result. Like, that is who we're selling to, right? So do you think, how important is it to communicate to the entire company? Everyone get on board. This is who our buyer persona is. This is who we're looking out for. Like, is it just a sales and marketing thing, or is it an entire company thing?
Well, it depends on the size of the company. I mean, the kind of companies we've been talking about, it's everybody, because everybody's in sales and marketing. When the company's small, we're all in sales and marketing, friends. This is not like division of labor. You know, but we work with some of the largest corporations in the world, and there's people that couldn't care less and don't need to care about buyer personas. So it really does depend on the size of the company. Here's the key. Anybody who is having an impact on the buying experience for that customer should know about that, what buyers want from that buying experience. And, you know, we talk a lot about the customer experience. We're usually talking about the product and using the product. And a lot of people are trying to optimize for the customer experience, and that's a great thing. You know, that gets us good products, and we want that. But the buying experience is something that we don't do enough to optimize.
And talk about, what do you mean by the buying experience?
So, let's see. Why has Uber become so successful? I mean, frankly, they're driving me from point A to point B, and they're charging me more, and, you know, and so forth. But buying, you know, ordering up an Uber car, that buying experience is 1,000 times better than standing on the street corner going, stop, right?
Yes.
So that they optimized the buying experience. Amazon did the same thing. Remember when Amazon only sold books? You might be too young.
No, I think I'm a little older than you think, but I'm so, thank you so much. You're like making me feel great.
But I mean, Amazon used to just sell books. And what they did is they made the buying experience, and they still do, so much better than many other places we can shop, that we go to Amazon to buy things.
So your customer service is a part of the buying experience, right? So it's a part of the buyer experience.
Generally, yeah.
Your login. What about your login to the infrastructure? When you log into the website, ease of use is a part of the buyer experience.
Well, you know, a buyer probably doesn't have a login yet, right?
Okay. So that's when they become a customer.
Probably, yeah. But definitely, I mean, the first place that buyer personas became popular was with web design. Because personas, and I talk about this in the book, actually started with user personas, which is about the product. That idea has been around since the 90s. I did not invent that idea.
Okay.
And so the buyer persona is, And the website experience is a little bit about usability and the product, and a little bit about being the buyer. So it's one of the places where we first saw buyer personas being used. And so absolutely, the website, very important place to think about. And one of the places people fall so short. I mean, I go to websites and I see the same stupid benefits, buy my flowers, they'll be fresh and delivered on time. Well, that's what every other website says. Tell me something that nobody else is telling me. Tell me
and
what I
great
can.
customer service. When someone sells their business on great customer service, I'm like, no, that's actually what you're supposed to be doing. That's not an added benefit, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit. You started talking about was it the 5 pillars, or what were the 5?
We call them the 5 rings of buying insight.
Okay, can you tell us what those are?
Yeah, so the first one is, we call it priority initiatives. What triggers your buyer's decision to start looking for you, a company like you, a product like yours?
Okay.
What's the trigger? What's the driver? The second insight, we call it success factors. It's how does your buyer describe the result they're going to get out of making this purchase?
Okay.
Something they couldn't do before, now they can do that. What's the buyer's words around that? You mentioned it earlier, Naja. This is all about getting the buyer's words around this.
Okay.
The third insight, we call it the bad news insight. It's the perceived barriers insight.
And this is always the one that I've struggled with. Tell me more about that. And tell us more about that, because that is one that I know the importance of it, and I actually know the value of it. I'm just not quite sure how to maneuver through it.
How to discover it or how to use it once you get it?
Both. How to discover it and then how to use it. Because I haven't discovered it, I never used it.
Okay, well, first let me make sure that the audience knows, the people listening to this know what a perceived barrier insight is. And so this is the reason that people don't change. Don Draper's customers still smoking Lucky Strikes after 50 years.
Yeah.
Or when they do change, they don't choose you. Okay? And so those 2 things is what you're trying to learn. Now, how do you learn this? You interview people who didn't choose you. This should be pretty easy to find. If you stand outside the florist department, they didn't. And then, you say, well, how did you come to the conclusion that these were the right people to buy flowers from or to coach me on the business strategy? You interview those people and you find out what were they thinking about that you weren't relevant to them. And then what do we do about that? Oh my gosh, this is my pet peeve around marketing.
Okay, good.
Is that, we all tend to talk about the benefits of our product. In fact, we learned this, right? Don't talk about features, talk about benefits. But in today's day and age, when customers are so self-educated and buyers are so smart, when they go through the buying decision, they've got attitudes, perceptions, beliefs that, I know one. I saw a great article last year about diet pills and how the companies that make diet pills have actually solved a lot of the problems that were causing diet pills to be, scary, right? Like cause all sorts of health risks. They can't sell them because people have developed the attitude that diet pills are bad. That's a perceived barrier insight. What do they need to do? What do the diet pill companies need to do? They need to stop talking about how I'm going to lose weight. I mean, hell yes, I want to lose weight. Who doesn't, right?
Right, absolutely. So then what would they sell on then? So then how would they change that?
So they want to start talking about what they've done to fix the problem that made diet pills unhealthy. They need to confront the fact that people think this is scary. And they need to go change that perception straight on. We are all so afraid of addressing people's objections. But I'll tell you, when I was a salesperson, that was the most important part of the sales cycle.
So let me ask you this question, because I think I might do this naturally, but you'll tell me if I'm doing this correctly. So one of the things that I have found is there's lots of business coaches out there. There's lots of business coaches. And because you don't have the luxury of really spending a little bit of quality time with people initially so that they can know you and they say, oh my gosh, you're so intuitive and all these things. One of the things that I've learned is really first addressing I'm clear that you have lots of options out there. There are a lot of people that you could be choosing. And I come from a point of view that the difference between me and a lot of the other coaches is I've built very successful product-based brick and mortars and service-based businesses, whereas a lot of business coaches these days are theoretical. So is it looking at the difference? Is it looking at your differentiating factor and whatever it is? Is it, you know, whether your product or, is that the same thing?
Oh, thank you so much. That was such a great example. And so you just said that you've determined that the way to present yourself as different from your competition is about your practical experience and that you're not theoretical. If we were going to build a persona and we were going to use the perceived barrier insights, what we'd want to hear is that buyers have had the experience that they don't buy business from business coaches at all because they've got all sorts of theory about business and not enough practical experience that's actually relevant to their job. That's how I just reversed engineered the insight that would lead you to that conclusion. Now, like we were talking about, you've just tested that. You're in a sales mode. You can do that one-off. You can see how people react to that. You can adjust your message accordingly. We build buyer personas primarily for marketing. When we're trying to get a message out to the mass market, we don't have the ability to kind of feed off of what people are saying, change the message as we go. We've got to write something on our website and we got to live or die by it.
Yes.
That's why buyer personas are important.
Okay, I like that. So we're using it in tangible marketing rather than kind of this natural sales process. Hi, HCHC Advertising. We are doing well. I don't know, I think you're just joining us. You've missed some really valuable information. Adele has been sharing with us about buyer persona and marketing and the importance of it and when it's important and when it's not important. So we've missed you. Welcome.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Brutal? Are you brutal?
No, my mic is brutal. That's it. You're the first person to say anything. You know what? Let's see. Okay, I'm going to be honest. Now that you've said something, oh, it's echoing for you. I wonder if me taking this off.
It's not echoing for me.
How's that? HCH, yours is fine. Adele, yours is fine. Is that better? Just no mic at all? Eek, nope.
Yep.
Sorry. Oh, it's okay. I'm not quite sure what happened. So I'm going to put this back in, and we only have a couple of more minutes with Adele. So if you have any questions, jump on over, and if anyone would like to jump in a hot seat, oh, mute my computer. Okay.
Yeah, you're not talking.
I just updated my Windows. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I just updated my Windows HCH, and so I'm not even quite sure. I literally just updated it today, so I'm not quite sure how to do it, and I'm not going to take the time to do that now.
No, you can just mute your sound, like you muted me. Just mute there.
But then, can you hear me?
No, you'd have to do it just when you weren't talking. Yeah, you're right. That won't work. Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Let me give you the last two buying insights. So I gave you the trigger, the success factors, the perceived barriers. The next one we call decision criteria. And what's that? Smoking? Applause. Decision criteria are the attributes of your product that buyers care about and that they want to know about and they want to hear about on your website and in your marketing materials. So what is precise capabilities of your product or your company that they want to know about? And then the final insight is the buyer's journey, which is all the places your buyers go to look for information and where you need to be in order to be effective and have your buyers find you.
Okay,
and
let's talk a little bit more about that. Let's talk about where are people with online, social media. We have so many ways to find our ideal buyer. What are ways that where should we be looking? And obviously there's a process for us to go through before to identify where they are, but give us some ideas on where we're finding our customers these days.
Well, as a matter of fact, I just was looking at what were some of the things. I can never share with you the real buyer persona work we did or what we learned, but there's one finding that relates to that we heard across every study we did last year, And that is, and it's in a certain way it's good, in a certain way it's scary, that the number one way people are finding who they're going to do business with is by talking to their peers. And so, here we are all focused on SEO and, having a great website and all of that. And, the less time your buyer spends on the buying decision, the more likely it is that they will go on Google and they'll just search. But if your buyer's investing a lot of time in the decision, a few hours, a few weeks, a few months, they're very, very, very influenced by their peers. And that's rough. That's kind of rough thing to hear as a marketer, because it's really hard to influence that except to have a good customer experience so that their peers are likely to say something good. That's the one thing we hear consistently. It's all about what their peers say.
So are we talking about now this is very, very different than referrals, right? This is about so you're saying just start talking to our friends, or?
I'm saying that when people decide where to buy something, they go ask their friends, where did you buy that?
So for instance, Yelp has become a peer focused.
Exactly.
Peer focused. Okay. And so how do we participate in that then? Like, how can we participate in extracting that information from the peer process?
It's really rough, isn't it? I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things for us to hear. I don't think I've cracked that nut.
No.
You remember, I'm not a marketing consultant, right? We just tell people what the buyers say. But, I think it's something we have to keep thinking about. And the other thing I want to say to you is, part of the reason that's happening is because it's our fault. We're not doing a good enough job of providing helpful information to buyers, so they go talk to their peers. And so I think the best thing we can do is to, and I love this, I don't love the book, but I love this thought. Jay Baer, B-A-E-R, wrote a book called Utility, Y-O-U-T-I-L-I-T-Y. And he said, I'll type it in. And he said, marketing should be so useful that your buyer would be willing to pay for it.
Oh, that's good. That is good. Now, let me ask you, I just started this course called Using 15-Second Videos. Would you say that we need to, on our website, we need to have more opportunities for people to see us and learn from us? So we kind of use a multi-sensory approach to educating them when they come to our website, so they can hear us and see us through video. They can go to our About Us, which really tells us, like, what are some of the key components on the website to get them to learn from us rather than from our peers about why we're the best or the best.
Well, I love that question, Naja, because people ask that kind of question all the time. And I'll tell you, yes, you should do all of those formats, but the most important thing isn't the format, it's what you say. So it's not that you need to, get rid of text and have video or have graphics and don't have this. It's get inside the mind of your buyer and then tell them what they want to hear. And
so wherever it is.
Yeah, we want
social media posts, wherever you're talking to your audience.
That's the whole concept of buyer personas. We got to get out of our own heads. This is my vision. This is my passion. This is what I want to talk about. And we want to tell buyers what they want to hear.
4-3 Faith says your tone and message is everything. He said he totally agrees with what you said. Your tone and your message is everything.
It's everything.
And I think that's genius. We have about 1 more minute. This has been such great information. I know that we have a lot of people that are actually just coming in, so I hope that you'll all check out the replay. Please share the replay through your, tweet it out, share it with your audience. Adele has got a book out. You scroll up, there's a link, and it's called The Buyer Persona, How to Gain Insight into Your Customers' Expectations, Align Your Marketing Strategies, and Win More Business. So go out. Her book actually is an opportunity for you to do everything that she's talking about here in the buyer persona process, like just exceptional information. Okay, so before we close out, Adele, can you just give us what is the one thing, when everyone leaves and they log off, what's the one thing that they need to do tomorrow morning to start to really get clear and utilize their buyer persona?
make sure you listen. Quit talking and start listening. You know, we're all such communicators, right? We want to tell our story and talk about ourselves. Stop it. First, listen to your buyer, and then make your story fit what your buyers want to hear.
I love that. I love that. So listen, and you know, that's actually good information in relationships. Oh, you know, Denise Langley, I may be tearing your name apart. Do you mind if we just take a moment? Someone would like to jump in and see. Denise, I'm going to let you in for a sec, okay? Oh, Dennis. Sorry, I said Denise. Hi, guys. How are you?
We're in Rancho Santa Fe.
Oh, hey, I'm in Long Beach, California. Adele is up in the Pacific Northwest. So did you have a question for Adele? Are you teaching someone how to use Blab?
He's just showing me how Blab works.
Oh, okay. Well, we're nice to have you guys. Thanks for jumping on.
What are you guys talking about?
We're talking about buyer persona. So if you're in marketing, we're talking about how to really start to connect deeper with your ideal clients.
Oh, I have a podcast called The 5-Minute Bark.
Okay, well, post it out. Let us know about it, okay?
It's an entrepreneurial podcast.
We love it. We love it. Thanks, Dennis, for jumping in.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.
It's a fun tool. I love it. It's cool.
It is really fun, and I have to say, especially, I don't use it consistently because I have a different platform that I use, but I'm thinking about starting to use it again because you really get to connect with people from around the world who are learning about the information that you have. So that's one of the things that I love about it. And from a buyer persona perspective, right? This is a great opportunity to do exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so, I've never seen it. It's fun. I liked it. That was cool.
This is good. Well, I want to thank you, Adele, so much for joining us. This has been so valuable. I want to tell everyone that Adele joined us despite the fact that she found out today she has pneumonia when she thought she had bronchitis. So thank you for still being here. That is a true professional, and I really appreciate that. You all can find Adele over at firepersona.com. Real trooper, seriously, yes. Gianna says, oh boy, real trooper. Firepersona.com, so please go check out her information. How can we help you and support you in your business? Is there an ideal person that we could send to you or introduce you to?
No, the way you can help me is by doing what I'm talking about and telling everybody that buyer personas are about understanding the mindset of your buyer around a buying decision. And it's not just about making pretty pictures. And so that's why even though I don't feel well, I was happy to do this tonight, Naja, because I am so passionate about the potential to be of value to our buyers and therefore to, start to have more successful businesses. I really appreciate the chance to be here, and it was a great fun time for me.
That's great for being here. For everyone, we'd love for you to join us over at Thrive, our Thrive community. So go into Facebook, type in Thrive Entrepreneurs, join us because we have a community of very supportive entrepreneurs who are doing great things in the world, and we are all about growing together. And so head on over to Facebook, type in Thrive Entrepreneurs, and join us for the fun. Again, Adele, thank you so much. And every Thursday, 6:30, we have exceptional guests like Adele who are talking about relevant business conversations. We're having relevant business conversations that are really here to inspire, motivate, and educate you to be better entrepreneurs. So thank you, everyone, for being here, and I will see you next Thursday. Thanks, Coach Nori. Bye, Adele. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Naja. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.